Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of AM Minnesota. We're going to get you informed, if you are not already, about the bond request here in the Faribault Public School District. Before I turn it over to the gentlemen here who know all about this, and I mean all, we're going to inform you about some upcoming shows. Tomorrow, the head of the Bethlehem Academy School, Dr. Briscoe, will be in studio here on AM Minnesota. On Monday, Jeff Pesta, is the superintendent of Kenyon Wanamingos, will go over their bond request. So we're getting all kinds of school information today. Let's get to know our guests. I'll start with the superintendent of the Faribault Public Schools, Todd Sesker. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning, Gordy, and thank you again for having us on the air.
Oh, yeah. Well, we want the voters to be informed when they hit the booth on November 7th, just as you guys do as well.
I appreciate that. We've been really trying to get the word out there. I think more and more people are understanding what this is all about, and hopefully people will go vote on November 7th.
Did you tell me that you have, by the time the vote happens, you'll have 50 meetings in the area?
Yeah, 50 meetings in the area or so, give or take a couple. I think more give. We'll probably be closer to 50, 55. But
wow.
We've been out there trying to reach as many people as possible.
You want to introduce these school board members? You work with them closer than I do.
You bet. I have Richard Olson here as one of our school board members, and Chad Wolff, the other school board member. These two have been leading the cause of this operating and bond levy, and I'm hoping you'll be able to talk to them and let them tell you a little bit more about what this is all about.
Richard, you've been on the board for over a decade, right?
Yes, I believe I'm in my 11th year right now. And again, it's with this bond and a small operating levy. I totally believe in it. I totally support it. And I urge my conservative base to vote for this. I know it's a tax increase, but this is a good tax increase for our students.
Yeah, that was the number one thing, if I recall, over a decade ago that you ran on was, we got to watch our dollars here.
That's right. And I've been involved from the beginning, along with, of course, Todd and Chad. I'm watching this very, very closely. I've not missed a meeting of all these committees and everything. This is going to be very well watched, very well run, and it's going to be some good facilities once we get done with them.
So how did you get sold on it?
Well, I talked to Todd about it, and what basically I wanted, safety and security was my top priority, and he put it on the list right away. And second, with the space needs at the elementaries, I said, why don't we build a new school? Take those rooms, vacate, we can use those rooms and put it over to the McKinley site, and then have early childhood, which is increasing quite a bit. I like to capture those students almost from birth to kindergarten.
Yeah, there's some studies that show that the people that get early education don't go to prison, get more education, more apt to go to college, and all those things.
Yeah, I think it's good. A lot of studies, and I believe in it. I believe in the whole project 100%. And there's no backing down on this at all. I'll be voting yes on November 7th.
You have, like many of our listeners and like many people in the Faribault Public School, you're an empty nester, right?
That's correct. But my son moved into the school districts, and he has two boys.
Oh.
They're not in the district, but we're trying to get custody of the two boys, and they will actually be at Jefferson, actually. And I want them to come to this district rather than another district where they're at.
Now, Chad, you've got kids in the school system right now, right?
Yeah, I'm a full nester. Yeah, I have 3
full
kids.
Nester. I like that.
9th grader, and an 8th grader, and a 4th grader.
So it's obvious why you're in favor of this.
Yeah, Gordy, you and I go quite a ways back, and
I'm telling me I'm old.
No, well, I'm getting older, so I'm a big believer in. I have yet to see a community that is growing and thriving without a great school system and without a good, solid school system. And this is one way to make ours better. And it's also one way to make our entire Faribault community better. So.
All right, we're going to talk more with these guys, get into more specifics, language of the ballots and that sort of thing. When AM Minnesota
starting at $295. Harry Brown's Family Automotive in Faribault. Online at harrybrowns.com.
79, 80,
36
somewhere in there.
Signing plus
Not here,
license.
but
Charger 3000. OAC must be in stock. See
started
for
here in
details.
87.
Offers end
How many stops
10/31/17.
before here?
Hey,
Missouri,
don't we need
Nebraska,
a newer,
Iowa.
bigger Nico
There were 3
grain
different.
dryer
So where were you
this
originally
year
from?
to dry that
Spring
crop?
Valley, Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
Let's go to Grasshouse Structures.
Where I grew up. I was born in Worthington.
Geneva.
Hey, this is
Turkey
David
capital
Dave
of the world.
from Broscoff Structures. Call or come in and talk to Travis or Shannon today about a different grain dryer. 507-256-7501. 256-7501.
Again, in studio are Superintendent of the Faribault Public Schools, Todd Sesker, and Faribault Public School Board members. Let's see, I've got the clerk here. What does the clerk do, by the way, Richard?
He signs a lot of documents after the board votes.
Oh, okay. You sign documents.
I sign a lot of documents.
You got writer's cramp?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So I'm going to put in a claim for workman's comp here.
But I was looking at your bio, I didn't realize, and look at this, you've been on the board over a decade, and I didn't realize that you have a degree in architecture and structural engineering.
That is correct.
I mean, that's perfect when they're talking about building buildings, right?
That's why I can talk their language. That's why that I became involved with the architect's construction manager. Because I do understand the lingo, and that's why told the board I'll be watching. I'm taking this actually pretty personal on this whole vote too.
And Chad Wolff is the 1996 graduate. Your wife was a classmate, right?
She was, yep.
Yeah. So you're both graduates of Faribault High School. I said this morning you bleed green, and you pretty much do, don't you, Chad?
I do, you're right.
Bleed green. So you're on the Finance Committee, the Facility Committee, along with Richard, and the Insurance and Negotiations Committees.
I am.
I got all this off the website.
You got it right, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. You can look all this stuff up on the website, right?
That's correct.
All this information.
All this is. Look on our school website. You got everything you want to know about our school district.
Todd, do you want to give that address out for folks? Because I won't remember it off the top of my bald head.
Yeah, it's just the address on the school website. If you just Google Faribault Public Schools, and within the school website itself, there's an icon on the top right-hand corner. You just press the icon, and everything you want to know about the vote for November 7th is right in there. Everything's detailed. It has all the information you could want and more.
So should we get to the more specifics about what you guys are requesting here?
Sure.
You want to start, Chad?
Sure. You got any questions? Or
Specifically, the first question, let's go over the first question first, because that's the request for extra levy dollars, right?
Yep. Correct.
And if I understand this right, correct me if I'm wrong, that has to pass in order for the building to happen.
Both questions have got to pass for anything to happen.
Oh, really?
Well, for the buildings to pass, or the buildings to be built, correct. Question 1 has got to pass, and then question 2 has got to pass. That
If
is
question 1 passes, question 2 fails, you still get the extra dollars, all right?
We get the extra dollars, and then it's up to the board and Superintendent Sesker to likely dedicate those funds into something that would be on hold for a potential future bond. Let's call it a Plan B, but right now we don't have Plan B. We have Plan A and Plan A only.
Yeah. So the plan here, Richard, is to pass this.
Yes, that there's no if, it's just when is it going to pass. I've said that many, many times. You have to put it in your head and say when this passes. Then the real work begins on November 8th.
And if I heard you correctly, what sold you on this deal was the improvements to safety at each of the buildings here in the district.
Safety and security, and plus the new early childhood kindergarten center. That's really the two things. Along with the event center, became more and more excited as it was Chad was explaining. He visited other event centers. I'm excited for the whole package actually, and that's why we didn't divide it or nothing. It just, to me, it's great. It's going to be good for the community. I'm going to use it, try to keep fit, at least give it a shot. But again, I believe in this totally, 100%.
The event center is on the second question, along with all the other building, right?
All the building items are on the second question. Safety and security as well. Early childhood kindergarten center, that's all in question number 2, the bond. Bond meaning bricks and mortar.
Yeah, I don't want to confuse people here, but when they go to the polls, they're going to have to vote on these 2 questions.
Correct.
So I just want them to know, in order for the building to happen, the levy has to pass.
Correct. Both questions, yes and yes.
And the total price tag is roughly what, 87 million?
Approximately 87 million, correct.
And Todd, what that does to my taxes, of course everybody should have this notification of election that I have in my hands.
Yeah, there's a tax table in there, and the average...
I was teasing Richard about the font on here.
Yeah, I can see it perfect. The average home value is about $150,000 in our community, and that tax impact is $242. The board wanted to stay under $300 per year. They got it down to $242, which is terrific. It's about $20. It's still a dollar amount. We understand that, but it's the board's belief that it's well within our means to afford.
Yeah, it's $20.17 a month.
$20 a month.
66 cents a day.
There you go. You got it. Yep. So, that whole piece includes the event center that Chad and Richard were just talking about, the early childhood kindergarten center, and also the new area learning center, which is a very important building for us too. And all the renovations with the elementary schools and middle school and other renovations within the high school. So there's a lot of, for that $20 a month, the taxpayers are going to get a pretty good bang for the buck.
But Gordy, that is on the average price of the average home in Faribault.
Yeah,
so,
the $150,000 valued home, which is the average in Faribault.
Correct.
There is a table on the notification of election that everybody in the Faribault Public School should have received one of these, right?
Yeah, every taxpayer for the school district will receive one. That's correct.
Yeah, and if you didn't receive one, just contact the school, I would assume.
Oh yeah, contact the school. We get those addresses directly from the Secretary of State. So, and we send it to our vendor, they mail it out, and everybody should have got one.
Okay. So the levy request is for a new authorization. You're getting rid of the old levy.
Yep.
Revoking that, and then bringing in this new levy. Current levy is $804.87. The new one, $1,040 per pupil.
Correct. That'll still be a little bit below state average, but it's in there where we feel comfortable that we can move ahead forward. Not only with our current levy, but also with this new levy that will be dedicated towards the buildings in question number 2.
What's this state average?
State average is right around $1,300 per student, between $1,200 and $1,300 per student.
And do you dedicate these dollars toward, the buildings or something?
We do. They have a specific dollar amount that's attached to them. So, for example, part of the proposal is to bring ag back to our schools. When the bond issue passes, because Richard always tells me to use the word when, we are creating a STEAM wing in the high school, and part of that STEAM will be an ag program. And within that dollar amount on that first question, in order for us to support an ag program, we have to hire a teacher. So part of that dollar amount is a teacher salary that can support the ag program within that.
So if this doesn't pass, there's no ag program?
That's correct.
If I'm hearing you right.
Yeah, unless something else happens in the future for some reason, but basically we're pretty dependent on that operating levy to pass in order to support a teacher.
Now, I did chat with you a little bit before going on the air, Richard, about the wording in this. Well, actually, I talked to all you guys about the wording in the second question that doesn't really outline specifically what you're doing in terms of buildings, and you guys explained there's no way you could do that.
This was all prepared by our attorneys,
Right.
both questions, so to make sure it's legal, so it's not overturned later on.
Yeah, it does read like an attorney wrote it.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
And that's what it is, to make it legal so nothing happens in a lawsuit.
They wanted to be all-encompassing but somewhat vague. I mean, isn't that what legal does?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think we want to make sure that it's encompassing and it tells the voters what they're voting on. Again, if the voters want more information, I'd really encourage them to call my office, talk to one of these guys, they know everything about it, or go to the website and hit that button on the right-hand corner, and it will detail everything you want to know about the bond. But
Hey, Gordy, there's actually, on the website, there's one document that's 150 pages long that pretty much details the last 18 months of work. So if somebody wants to really...
blueprints of the proposed buildings,
it's got sketches of everything. It's got the current layout of buildings. It's got proposals in there. That doesn't mean it's firm yet, but what could be. And so 150 pages, go at it, knock yourself out.
Now, Richard, was there ever any consideration of separating this, having the event center separate from the school building safety issues? Or
Yeah, there was, the board talked about it. The board has really been involved, and we voted just to have that one question instead of multiple questions, which could be more confusing. So it was discussed, and we added everything together into the building bond question.
And you voted unanimously to go forward with this one question.
I believe we've always had 7-0 votes on everything, and that says a lot for the district.
With regards to this vote.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Not all the time, but for this, it's a lot of discussion. We voted. It was 7-0, because being a clerk, I record the votes, and it's always been 7-0.
And I know off the air during the market update, Chad, you were mentioning you had a terrific cross-section of community members that helped you put this together. It wasn't all the school board that did this.
Oh, heavens no. Richard and I were the only 2 school board members that were involved in the previous community task force over the last 18 months. We had farmers from Nurstrand. We had somebody that worked here at Alina Hospital. We had a couple teachers. We had a couple students. We had people from a basketball association. We had a business owner, a couple business owners on there. I think all in all, between the 2 task force, we had approximately 40, 50, 55 people.
Police department.
Police department. We had, it was multi-cultural, pretty evenly split men and women. We had just tremendous involvement. And I can tell you, it was not hand-picked. There was actually an application process where people actually filled out an application to be part of it. And so it was absolutely wonderful. Long discussions. I don't know, Richard, you and I were probably in these 2 groups. Anybody that was on both groups with us, I don't know, I'm sure we have 50, 60 some hours or more between the 2 groups over the last 18 months.
Oh, easily.
So did you have a group take a vote before,
yes,
to decide whether
right,
you were going to include
yes.
this?
Yeah, once we got past the first group that recommended bringing an architect, then we essentially went through an architect interview process. We decided on Wolff. Wolff is one of the largest throughout the state and throughout the country,
For education.
and for education. And then Wolff really helped guide the conversations and the meetings with the last community task force, and it's something that they do all the time, and they were instrumental in Owatonna's $77 million bond. 3 years ago that passed, and they did a tremendous job, and I can't thank Wolff enough, and I can't thank all the community members enough, and Todd's leadership team and Richard and everybody involved. They've really taken a tremendous amount of time and effort away from their families and spouses and kids, giving up important things to come make this a priority, and I can't thank them enough.
Yeah, the vote is on November 7th. November 7th, you had 3 polling places, and if I remember right, last time you guys had a vote, you didn't do that, and you ended up with long lines, and that's why you decided to go this route.
We did, yeah, and you're exactly right, Gordy. And the reason why we only chose 3 is because it costs between $7,000 and $8,000 for the school district to put these on per area, per
Okay.
polling place. So we want to try to be responsible with the money too. At the same time, make sure that we didn't experience the exact same thing that we experienced the last time we voted. I mean, we didn't get the votes till I think last time around 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Because things went kind of goofy. No problem with the judges. It's just it was just so many people in one spot. It was very congested. So
hopefully you alleviated that.
yeah, we hope that's going to help by splitting them up into 2 spots.
Gordy, you mentioned earlier in one of your intro segments that you're having somebody on from Kenyon coming up, and I think and also the director of BA. I believe it's slightly over 20% of public school districts in the state of Minnesota are going out for a bond this year. When you think of that 1 in 5, it's an extremely high number that have already gone out or are going out in the year 2017. And so I think that just tells you how facilities are and how we need some upgrades. And we're not unique. I mean, a lot of people are doing it. 20% in 1 year. That says something. Todd, can you just mention the A credit that the legislature enacted?
That's what's going to be my next point.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chad.
The legislature last session and the governor signed into law a 40% tax credit for any of the bonds that are passed by school districts. So
That's the carrot, and that's why so many schools are going.
Yeah, or even what it really meant too, not just that's part of the carrot, but to farmers it meant that any other previous bond issues that had been passed would also get that 40% credit. So it's a total package. So if you've already had like a Owatonna who passed their bond issue a couple of years ago, farmers are going to see a substantial decrease in their taxes with this credit. So that was nice for the farmers and actually nice for the schools because we do have some challenges and farmers do get hit pretty hard when it does come to bonds.
Yeah, and the legislature realized that most of these were going by the wayside in the outstate areas because of the dependence on those ag properties.
That's exactly right. I think I want to emphasize too, this is a credit, so the tax doesn't get redistributed to houses and manufacturing and businesses. It's an actual credit that comes from the state, not from the local taxpayers. So it is a credit.
But only to the
ag folks. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Ag and non-ag, non-homestead. Yep.
Specifically building-wise, you mentioned the early childhood education building. It's going to be a brand new building.
Brand new buildings. In fact, a couple of the buildings, the McKinley, existing McKinley, and the ALC, they are not code updated and accessibility issues. They're not really not, to me, with my background, they're not really worth anything. They will be torn down when this passes, and especially at the McKinley, with the kindergarten and bigger early childhood, they'll tear down the McKinley old building. Of course, it'll be a nice building, and we own the property. We're not buying any land with this bond. Then the ALC, who knows, but that's been used for many things. It's not, can't be used anymore. So new one will be there, new ALC, and then that one will be torn down.
So the new building is on the existing building site.
Right.
Well, the site, yeah, not where the existing building is. Yep. So somewhere on the site, we'll have to
someplace, yeah.
Right.
You've got to keep it open until we build something. We can't have the kids in the street.
Sure. Now, Chad, I don't know if you know or if Todd can answer this, the specifics about what you're doing in terms of the entryways of the schools to make them safer.
Well, right, I'll just chime in and then I'll turn it over to Todd. But right now, we have 7 school district buildings, and the only school where people come in off the street, parents, whoever, visitors, the only building where they actually go through a staffed office, where they walk through a staffed office, is the middle school. Take Lincoln, for example. You walk in, you go into like a 6x12 locked vestibule, you push a button, there's a camera, they buzz you in. Before you ever get to the staffed office, there's a flight of stairs that can take you up to the 4th and 5th grade wing. It's just not very safe. Now, almost every new school that is built, according to our architects and according to everybody what we know, the offices are in front, and anybody that comes in during the school day has to go through a staffed office and essentially check in and be recognized.
I mean, at the high school you have to get buzzed in, but you could easily dodge into
Correct.
Michael J. Hansen or whatever.
Correct, and or just blow right by everybody and there's nothing you can do. Where at the middle school you get buzzed into a staffed office, and that would be the one thing that safe and secure entrances.
And I'm sure, Chad, you think quite often, I mean, when you were going to school there, you never even had a thought about somebody coming in and shooting up your school, you know?
Changing times, and it's unfortunate, but it's the reality. And how do we keep our kids safe and yet at the same token have a welcoming environment? You know, it's a balancing act, but that's what we're trying to do.
And you're going to do this at all the buildings?
All the buildings, that is correct. That is correct. And then one other piece of the safety, with regards to Jefferson and Lincoln, I'll challenge anybody to drive by those schools between 7:30 and 8 a.m. on the streets around them, or 2:45 to 3:15, and see the chaos on the small streets with the buses lined up, all the moms and dads picking people up, kids going across the street. The school district does a great job of trying to get kids to cross in certain areas and whatnot, but through this as well, we would put some new off-street bus parking at Lincoln and Jefferson, and hopefully decongest those areas and make it safer as well.
So we're talking about like a little drive that the buses would come in off the street?
Yeah, you're showing with your hand, and I'm not sure your listeners can see real well, but once again, there's a great potential visual on that 150-page document online if somebody wants to see. But you're exactly right, trying to get the buses off the street so that they're not fighting with the cars in the passing traffic. So, Todd, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, the other thing that we talked about within the schools, particularly the middle school and the high school, is that we're really congested. The school lunchroom in the middle school is very tight, and the open area for kids is really tight, and that sometimes causes some kids to get irritated with each other, and sometimes we get conflict.
Yeah, especially at that middle school age.
It is really tight. And so the proposal was, and the whole theme was safety and security. As Richard said, that was the big theme throughout the whole process. And so we wanted the design that we're looking at both at the middle school and the high school to include that. So we would open that place up, knock some walls down, get some areas that are open spaces for kids, expand the cafeteria so we can fit more kids in there, and do the same thing at the high school. Open some of those places up so that we don't get some of that congestion that causes some of the conflict.
The other new building would be the event center, right, Richard?
That's correct.
And where would that be located?
Well, conceptually right now it's at the high school, but there's a lot of traffic studies that have to be done. We have to talk to the neighbors. We have to really listen, but in case it doesn't work out, and plus all the city approvals, then we'll have to locate that someplace else.
So you could still put it out, for example, by Ball Field or something.
It could be. So right now it's sort of floating out there. The rest of the buildings are pretty much set, but that is...
Is Ball Field city property or is that school property?
That's divided between city and school, and then the soccer association.
Do you have enough room out there to put it if you needed to?
Well, oh yeah, we have a lot of room out by the middle school. It would probably be connected to the middle school somewhere.
Okay.
We'd have to figure out what the design is. But as Richard said, the first priority is the high school, and it all depends on the studies that the city does.
Yeah. You have a preference, Chad?
I prefer the high school. It's centrally located. We've had a lot of discussions over the last several years with Dr. Parker and the Student Senate team at South Central College.
Oh yeah, they could.
They
use
would
it
love
too,
to
yeah.
have an intramural program which makes South Central College more attractive to their peers. At the same token, conceptually there's a walking, running mezzanine track up above. We've met with Paul Panansky in the city several times on how can we explore a partnership there. How do we get the community in to use it? This isn't just about the school district. It's a multifunctional facility.
All right. Thanks, guys, for coming in today. We're plumb out of time. Again, tomorrow, Dr. Briscoe stops by from Faribault Bethlehem Academy.